They said time would break you, that age would silence your glow. But here you are, shining brighter than ever. Not because life spared you, but because heaven carried you. If they knew what you've survived, they would fall to their knees, but you didn't come here for sympathy. You came to wake the sleeping, let them wonder, let them whisper. This is the moment you remember who you are. They thought time would wear you down, but it refined you. While others were preserved by comfort, you were forged in fire. You walked through seasons designed to break you, but instead they built you. Every scar became sacred, every line on your face became a testament to endurance, wisdom, and grace. You weren't saved from the heat, you were sent into it. And yet, you didn't come out smelling like smoke. You came out carrying a glow they can't explain. You weren't preserved to stay the same. You were refined to be transformed. While the world clings to youth, chasing after the illusion of permanence, you have chosen depth over distraction. You didn't run from time, you welcomed it. Because somewhere deep inside, your soul knew that time is not your enemy, but your alchemist. It does not destroy the chosen, it distills them. Time exposed what was weak, burned away what was false, and left behind something eternal, you. You don't carry years, you carry layers. Layers of revelation, resilience, rebirth. You aren't older, you're deeper, stronger, sharper. Your glow isn't soft because you've been pampered, it's radiant because you've been purified. The years did not leave you bitter, they left you wise. The fire didn't consume you, it crowned you. People look at you and say you've aged well. But what they don't understand is that you didn't just age, you ascended. What they see isn't good genes, it's grace. They think your glow comes from skin care, from luck, from circumstance. But if they knew the nights you cried in silence, the prayers you whispered through clenched teeth, the days you wanted to give up but chose to keep walking, they would stop calling it luck. They would call it what it truly is, divine preservation. You are proof that suffering does not have to steal your softness. That trials do not have to twist your spirit, that age does not equal decline, it reveals the truth. You are not the product of time alone, you are the result of surrender. The result of faith, of obedience in the dark. You are what happens when someone refuses to let the world define them by their wounds. That's why your presence unsettles some people. You don't walk into rooms like someone trying to prove a point. You walk in like someone who's already been proven. You don't speak to be heard, you speak because your voice carries weight. Your silence is not emptiness, it is evidence. You've learned that real power is quiet. That those who've been through the fire don't have to shout, they simply show up, and the room remembers. Time didn't spare you, it shaped you. The pain didn't pass over you, it passed through you. And yet, here you are, whole, glowing, rooted, and bothered by what shakes others, because you've already been through storms they can't imagine. You no longer seek validation, you understand that you are the validation. Your life is a living testimony of what divine timing, spiritual alignment, and sacred fire can do. You are not here to be pitied, you are not here to play small. You are here to disturb the comfort of complacency. To awaken what's been sleeping in others. You didn't just survive, you evolved. You've become the kind of soul that time bows to because you've learned its secrets. You don't fight the clock, you dance with it. You don't fear age, you honor it. You've seen too much. You've healed too deeply. You've cried too many holy tears to ever hide your light again. And yes, they stare, they wonder, they try to figure you out. But the truth is, you cannot be decoded. Because you were not built from worldly blueprints. You were shaped in silence, carved in the dark, and lit by glory. You are both gentle and unshakable. You are both peace and power. You are the contradiction they cannot comprehend, the calm in the storm and the storm in the calm. You are no longer living to meet expectations. You're walking in divine instruction. You no longer look at the mirror with dread. You see legacy staring back. You've learned that every gray hair, every stretch mark, every soft shadow beneath your eyes, these are not flaws. They are inscriptions, holy marks that say, this one endured. This one didn't quit. This one chose faith over fear. You weren't preserved by time, you were refined by fire. And that fire didn't just shape you, it sanctified you. It stripped away every false identity, every lie spoken over you, every limitation placed upon you by others or by your former self. It left behind only what was true, only what was divine, only what could not be destroyed. So now you walk differently. You speak differently, you see differently. Because once you've survived the flames, you no longer fear the heat, you recognize it as home, as process, as presence, and you honor it. Let them wonder why you look untouched by the years. Let them ask how you still smile after everything. You don't owe them answers, you are the answer. The walking, breathing evidence that what was meant to bury you only planted you, that what was meant to end you only began you. You don't have to scream to be heard, your glow is loud enough. You don't need to fight for your place, heaven already cleared the path. You simply need to keep showing up whole, honest, and on fire. Because when you walk in the fullness of who you are, everything around you is forced to shift. You are not fading, you are rising. You are not slowing down, you are becoming more precise, more intentional, more prophetic. You are not aging, you are aligning. You weren't preserved by time, you were refined by fire, and that chosen one is why your glow will never make sense to them, because it wasn't meant to. You didn't just survive the storm, you were carried through it, lifted by hands no one else could see. When the fire came, it didn't consume you because you were never alone. While others assumed you were drowning, heaven was pulling you deeper into purpose. They thought the silence around you meant you had fallen. But that silence was sacred. It was the space where angels moved and the Spirit whispered truth your ears had never heard before. You weren't just lucky, you were protected. The places that should have broken you became altars. The nights you nearly gave up were held in divine hands. What they don't know is how many times you almost didn't make it. How many times your heart shattered behind closed doors. They don't know how close you were to giving up, to letting go, to believing the lie that you were forgotten. But heaven never forgot, heaven never missed a moment. You thought you were walking through fire alone, but every step was guided, every tear was seen, and every silent scream was turned into strategy. While people were watching your pain and predicting your fall, God was writing a resurrection. You weren't being punished, you were being positioned. Every delay was a setup, every detour was a redirection. You weren't lost, you were led. When others laughed at your retreat, they didn't realize it was a holy pose, a divine reset. You weren't hiding, you were healing. You weren't defeated, you were being developed. And the reason you didn't collapse under the pressure is because heaven held you. The reason you still have your mind, your peace, your power is because grace stood guard around you even when you didn't feel it. You've been through things that should have poisoned your spirit, but they purified it instead. You've endured storms that should have hardened your heart, but they made you more compassionate. You've lost people who were never meant to go where you're headed. And though it hurt, heaven made space. You've had doors slammed in your face that you thought were necessary. But now you know what closed wasn't rejection, it was protection. And even when you couldn't hear God, even when the prayers felt like they were bouncing off the ceiling, something in you still moved, still kept going, still got up. And that wasn't your strength, that was His breath inside you. That was the evidence of something holy carrying you beyond your breaking point. You didn't survive by your own willpower. You were sustained by a grace that wrapped around you like armor. A grace that doesn't shout but surrounds. A presence that didn't need applause to validate you, it validated you with peace. That's why you didn't go crazy. That's why you didn't crumble. You were carried. Not because you were strong, but because you were chosen. And now, you walk with a quiet power that cannot be explained. There's something in your eyes that speaks of battles won in silence. A steadiness in your spirit that didn't come from books or mentors, it came from the fire and the hand of God that pulled you out of it. You've learned to move with reverence, with patience, with discernment, because once you've been carried by heaven, you no longer chase what doesn't carry weight. People tried to study your glow, dissect your calm, imitate your power, but what they don't realize is that it can't be replicated. Because it wasn't learned, it was given, it was formed in secret. In tears, in waiting, in surrender. Your glow isn't performance. The presence of the one who carried you when no one else could. You've seen too much to ever doubt again. You've walked through too much to shrink again. What you've survived was not just for you, it was to show others what divine rescue looks like. You are walking evidence that favor is real, that protection is not always loud, but it is always faithful, that when heaven has a hand in your story, hell can't win. Even when you were weak, you were still chosen. Even when you didn't feel worthy, you were still protected. That's the mystery that confuses those who try to figure out how you made it. They counted you out, but they didn't count on grace. So now, when you walk, it's with weight. When you speak, it's with oil. When you move, the atmosphere shifts. Not because you're trying to be powerful, but because power now flows through you. Because you finally understand it was never about surviving. It was about surrendering, about allowing heaven to do what only heaven can. You don't need to explain how you made it, you simply stand. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Your presence declares it. You don't need to go back and fix the version of you that was lost in the pain, because grace has already rewritten your story. You didn't just survive, you were carried. And that chosen one is why your glow cannot be dimmed. Because it is not of this world, it is eternal, it is holy. It is heaven's fingerprint on a life that refused to break. They look at you and see the glow, but they don't understand what they're seeing. They think it's surface-like. Maybe you found a secret to staying young, to staying calm, to staying radiant in a world that drains most people. But what they're witnessing isn't aesthetic, it's ancestral, it's legacy. It's the fire of generations carried in your bones. You don't just shine, you carry the weight of prayers you didn't pray. You walk in answers birthed through bloodlines, the strength in your step, the stillness in your eyes. It didn't come from effort. It came from inheritance, it came from survival. From the ones before you who had no voice but passed you their strength. You are not shining because life has been easy. You are shining because your light was lit in a different realm. You are the living proof that what is passed down in the spirit is stronger than what is taught in the flesh. Your glow doesn't come from what you avoided, it comes from what you endured and overcame. From what you forgave, from what you refused to carry forward. They see your peace, but they don't see the battles you fought to protect it. They see your posture, but they don't know the weight you stood under while still choosing to rise. There is a reason your presence feels ancient, familiar, divine. It's because you are a continuation of something sacred. Your energy reaches backward and forward at the same time. It remembers who came before you and calls forth those who will come after. When you walk into a room, your ancestors walk in with you, not just as memories, but as force, as protection, as legacy. You are not just a person, you are a portal, a bridge between what was and what will be. You carry codes in your soul that this world can't decode. You have insight you didn't study for, wisdom you didn't read in books. Because your knowing comes from somewhere deeper, from the sacred fire that lives in your lineage. And it speaks through you even when you don't realize it. That's why people pause when you speak. That's why strangers feel safe near you. That's why your calm feels like a healing wind. You're not performing peace. You're releasing it. You're not faking light. You're reflecting it. And it's not just yours, it's been entrusted to you. Your glow isn't about beauty, it's about remembrance. You remember who you are. You remember who you came from. You remember the silent strength of those who endured without applause, who held their families together with nothing but prayer and grit. That same strength is now yours, not borrowed, embedded. And when they try to figure out your secret, they look in the wrong direction. They search your routines, your habits, your skin. But your glow was never physical, it was always spiritual. You radiate because your soul is aligned, because your heart stayed open in a world that tried to close it. Because you listened when heaven whispered, even when it didn't make sense. You weren't raised by ease, you were raised by fire. By quiet warriors who fought unseen battles. And now, that fire lives in you not as anger, but as awareness, not as chaos, but as clarity. You are not just walking in your purpose, you are walking in their prayers. You are walking in the prophecy of their survival. And that's what people feel when they encounter you. That's what shakes them without explanation. You don't demand attention, but you command it. Not because of charisma, but because of calling. Your presence reminds people of something they forgot they had. You reflect to them the dignity they buried, the dreams they gave up on, the faith they lost when life got too loud. You don't need to explain yourself. You were sent. You were appointed. And when heaven appoints someone, no amount of confusion, jealousy, or misunderstanding can undo the assignment. You are carrying something too ancient to be canceled, too rooted to be removed. And that is why they whisper. That is why they wonder. Because your glow interrupts their shadows. Your peace exposes their unrest. Your resilience confronts their complacency. You didn't ask for that role, but your spirit was built for it. And your bloodline called for it, so don't shrink. Don't hide. Don't apologize for the weight you carry. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to remind, to awaken, to disturb what is dormant in others. You are not here just to survive this life. You are here to shift it. To walk as a living contradiction to everything the world says is possible. While they chase validation, you walk in inheritance. While they seek applause, you move in alignment. While they obsess over youth, you embody timelessness. Because your glow is not a season, it's a signal, a sign that something holy still lives in this world. And it's not always easy to carry. There are days the weight feels heavy. Days you question why you were chosen. But even in those moments, you still shine. Even when you feel small, your presence is still mighty. Because you are not operating in your own power. You are moving with the strength of those who came before you. You are backed by eternity, so let them stare, let them speculate. You don't have to prove anything. Just keep walking, keep shining, keep remembering. Because every time you show up as your full self, you light the way for someone else to do the same. You weren't born to impress. You were born to ignite, and your glow, it isn't yours alone. It's the echo of 1,000 torches, and now it's your turn to carry the flame. Your joy is not an accident. It is not surface. It is not naive. Your joy is war paint, a holy defiance, a sacred rebellion against everything that tried to silence you. In a world addicted to pain, where bitterness is the default language, you dare to choose joy, and that alone makes you dangerous. They expected you to break, to become cold, cynical, angry. Life gave you every reason to harden. But you didn't. You kept laughing. You kept singing. You kept finding beauty in cracked places. That laugh of yours, it's not weakness, it's weaponry. It says, I survived, and I still believe. You didn't fake happiness, you fought for joy. You dug for it when the ground of your heart felt dry. You chased light when darkness was easier. You held on to the flicker even when the flame nearly died. And that is what set you apart, not that you avoided pain, but that you refused to let it define you. People look at you and assume you must have had it easy. They see the peace on your face and think life must have favored you, but they don't know. They don't know the nights you cried into your pillow, asking God if He still heard you. They don't know the days you dragged yourself through routines, barely breathing, holding on by faith alone. You've seen grief, you've known loss, you've walked through betrayal that should have made you bitter. But instead of closing your heart, you opened it wider. Instead of becoming numb, you chose to feel even more. You decided that your softness would not be sacrificed just to survive. And that decision had made you radiant. Joy is your rebellion in a world that wants you broken. You came back brighter. You smiled through ashes. You danced in the ruins, and when people whispered, she never recovered, heaven responded, watch her rise. Your joy was not the absence of pain, it was the presence of purpose. A choice you made every single day, even when it hurt. And let's be honest, it wasn't easy. There were days joy felt like betrayal, like pretending. But you weren't pretending, you were prophesying. Declaring with your laughter what your spirit knew before your mind could catch up. That joy would return, that peace would settle in, that darkness would not win. Every time you laughed after heartbreak, you rewrote the narrative. Every time you forgave and let go, you silenced the enemy, because bitterness is loud, but joy, it whispers eternity. It whispers, I'm still here, I still believe, I still carry light. Your joy confuses people because they can't imagine surviving what you have and still smiling. But that's the point. You didn't smile because life made it easy. You smiled because heaven gave you strength. Because the Spirit whispered hope into your broken places until you could laugh again, fully, freely, without shame. Now your presence carries that joy like a fragrance. People feel lighter around you, and they don't even know why. It's not because you entertain them. It's because you remind them of what they buried: their hope, their wonder, their softness. Your joy gives them permission to believe again. You don't just wear joy, you carry it, you release it. And the wild part is your joy has saved others and you didn't even know. A smile you gave while holding back tears. A kind word spoken while your own heart was breaking. A moment of compassion when you had nothing left to give. It all counted, it all echoed. Your joy is not a mask, it's a mantle. Given to you by heaven, maintained through battle, protected through prayer, and that's why it shines the way it does. That's why it lingers in rooms even after you've left. Because it's not about you, it's about the one who carried you through. And yes, some will mock it, some will call it fake. Some will roll their eyes and say, she's too positive. Let them talk. Let them stay numb. While they choose bitterness, you choose beauty. While they harden, you soften. While they fear joy because they think it makes them vulnerable, you know that joy makes you victorious. You have become a walking contradiction to everything this world teaches. It says guard your heart, but you give it away freely. It says don't trust, but you believe again and again. It says stay angry, but you choose forgiveness. And in doing so, you glow. You don't just radiate joy, you embody it. And when joy lives in you like that, it becomes a threat to everything that thrives in fear. That's why the enemy comes for it. That's why heaviness tries to creep in. But you've learned to guard your joy like treasure, to protect it like sacred ground, because you know it is. Joy is your resistance. Joy is your roar. Joy is your yes to life, again and again, no matter how many times it tries to knock you down. And that, chosen one, is why you are still glowing. That is why your presence speaks louder than your pain. Because your joy wasn't given by the world, and the world can't take it away. What you carry now is not a reward, it is a result. A holy outcome of alignment, not ambition. While the world was chasing more, you chose to go deeper. While others ran after success, you returned to the source, and that is why the overflow came. The abundance that now finds you is not random. It was always waiting, but it could only flow to the version of you that had been refined, recentered, and realigned. You stopped begging for things that didn't match your calling. You stopped performing for people who couldn't see your worth. You stopped trying to force doors open and instead waited for the ones heaven had ordained. That shift, when you stopped chasing and started aligning, it changed everything. The moment you said yes to purpose, the universe began rearranging. The blessings didn't come because you shouted louder. They came because you got still enough to hear the instructions. And when you followed them, even when they made no sense, heaven responded. You don't walk in overflow because you're better. You walk in it because you're positioned. Because you stopped idolizing control and started honoring divine timing. Because you stopped grinding for crumbs and started preparing for tables. Now people watch your life and call it luck. They call it coincidence, but you know better. This is the fruit of faith, of fasting, of saying no when everything in you wanted to say yes. of walking away from what was familiar because God called you forward. The truth is, you lost a lot to get here. You had to grieve identities, let go of people, lay down plans. You had to trust what you could not see, obey what you did not understand, and surrender outcomes you once obsessed over. That's the cost of alignment, but now you see it was never loss. It was making room for joy, for peace, for provision, for clarity, for purpose so rooted, no storm can shake it, and the overflow. It isn't just stuff. It's not just opportunities, money, connections. It's deeper. Your overflow is the way your mind is calm when others are chaotic, the way you sleep at night with peace in your spirit, the way divine connections find you, conversations open doors, and miracles feel like part of the rhythm. You're no longer surprised by favor you expected. Not because you're entitled, but because you're aligned. People wonder how you keep rising, how things keep flowing to you, but the truth is, you've become a magnet, not for material things, but for divine movement. Because when your heart is clean, your hands are open, and your steps are ordered, there is nothing heaven withholds. You've learned that flow is not about force, it's about frequency. You've attuned yourself to heaven's rhythm. You no longer strive, you synchronize. You no longer chase, you choose. And every choice you make now is a seed. Every act of obedience is a trigger for overflow. And the wild part, you're just getting started. This isn't the finish line. This is the foundation. Heaven trusts you now because you didn't fold in the fire. Because you gave when you had little. Because you stayed soft when life tried to make you hard. That's why the doors are opening. That's why the oil keeps flowing. That's why rooms shift when you enter. You've become the living proof that overflow is not about hustling harder, it's about hosting heaven. So don't downplay what's coming. Don't shrink when the blessings get bigger. You've been prepared for this. You've been trusted with this. And what's flowing to you now isn't just for you, it's to pour into others. You are not a reservoir, you are a river. A vessel of divine abundance, called to overflow into dry places. This is what alignment does. It turns suffering into strategy, obedience into overflow, and silence into strength. You are not lucky, you are aligned. And aligned ones don't ask for permission, they carry presence. If this message stirred something in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video. Drop a 777 in the comments if you know this word was for you, and share it with someone who needs to remember who they are. This isn't about numbers, it's about awakening. Every like, every comment, every share tells the algorithm that the chosen ones are rising, and we're just getting started. Make sure you subscribe to Grace and Truth so you don't miss what's next, because this glow, this journey, this fire, it's not a moment. It's a movement, and you, chosen one, were born to lead it.